Hey, happy Friday, y'all. What better way to spend your Friday night than do some mastering and tune into a mastering live stream? That's how much of a nerd I am. So tonight I'm going to be in Pro Tools, and I'm actually mastering, this is like my third or fourth, third thing I've been working on today. But I gave myself some nice ear break to be able to get into this because, you know, with mastering, you really have to like refresh your ears every time you come to a new master. But I'm going to be going through a rock record, full band, guitars, bass, drums, singer, all that good stuff. Kind of like hard rock, I would say, hard rock, classic rock kind of vibes. And if you guys have any questions while I'm streaming, hey man, what's that? Why are you doing this? You know, like just ask them in the chat. That's all good. I've also asked that you guys, if you like what you see and what you hear and you get something out of this, just share the show. Like even if you're watching the replay right now, share the show. You're like, man, I just got a great tip, whatever. Cool. Share the show. Like it, comment, like share it. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Just try to support the channel. Try to support what I do here for you guys for free, 100% free, right? So just respect that a little bit. All right, so we're going to get into some mastering. I'm really excited about mastering. I love mastering. My studio is tuned for mastering. I'm using the Amphion 218s, and then I have the M700 monoblock amps that are running the 218s. They're not the Amphion amps because I kind of like, I like to match my amps to my speakers how I like to hear things. So that's what I did. And I find that these M700 amps are a little bit more high quality than the Amphion amps. So I got that, and the room's all tuned out. It's silent besides some hard drive noise and stuff, but let's get into it, guys. And again, if you have any questions along the way, just drop them in the chat. I'm going to show you kind of how I start a master, how I listen, where I want to start with the mastering phase. Mastering is a beast, man. Like a lot of people just throw like limiters on shit and just, you know, I mastered it. I put it through ozone isotope. It really is about ear training. It's about doing this for a long time. I've definitely been mastering for a good 15 years, mixing and mastering for, you know, over 20 years. So in a bunch of different rooms on a bunch of different speakers, headphones, whatever. So, you know, just, I want to say what's up to everybody here. Briggity, what's up, man? Chris Cohen in the house. Old time friend, Chris Cohen, great singer, songwriter. Y'all should go connect with him. You guys should all be connecting with each other in these lives. Like, I don't understand why you don't do more of that, because that's what this is for. This is so you guys can like really connect with each other and make your music business go a little bit further, right? Yo, what's up, Philippe? How you doing? Good to see you here. FICO here? FICO here? Okay, sorry. I don't know what that means, but I'm not getting that. Who else is in the house? I want to say what's up. Brian Olson. What's up, man? Brian's the man. Brian, you're going to like this one. You're going to get a lot out of this because this is definitely your style of music. Chris, Brian, what's up? You guys connect, definitely. Chris plays amazing acoustic guitar, writes amazing songs. He kind of singer-songwriter, folksy stuff. He could even do like country stuff, so connect. All right, so let's get into it. Without further ado, I'm going to play the track, and this is kind of how I start a master. I typically listen. That's really important. But you don't really need to listen to the whole song when you're mastering. You really want to kind of like read the waveform and listen to the parts. You know, you can jump around a little bit, let's just say, because in mastering, you're really listening for overall balance, compression artifacts, where the vocal's sitting, how wide it is, how deep it is, EQ, like you're hearing those details. You're not necessarily paying attention to, you know, you don't need to know like every lyric or every delay throw or whatever, right? So that's just not how you listen for mastering. But let's play it back a little bit. And I'll skip around a little.
Did my time, 9 to 5, 40 years on the grind. eyes bigger than cars. Now I have new friends and bodyguards. Always laughing with my... That's why they call me the greatest. Everything I do turns to gold. That's why they call me the greatest. To a viral extent.
Okay, so you can kind of hear what we're dealing with here. It's very, very important that you kind of skip around and you listen for the different parts because, you know, a lot of like mastering software will tell you just go to the loudest portion of the song and like play that on loop. But when a human's mastering your stuff, we're paying attention to what is the mastering going to do and the compression, limiting, all that stuff going to do when you get to these lower level areas where you have a lot more room. Crest factor, right? The crest factor is much bigger. And the crest factor means the difference between the RMS and the peak, right? So if your RMS and peak is like 11 dB on this section right here during the bridge, it's going to change that crest factor a lot more than it's going to change this crest factor at the loudest point. So this is why like automated mastering just isn't there yet, right? And a lot of people make automated mastering and they go, fuck, this doesn't really work. It works with songs that are very straight, like a trap song that just like plays the drums 808 and rap the whole time, right? It works pretty well with that. But human mastering, we have to pay attention to these areas. Like the intro, for example, is going to get a lot louder and a lot different shape when we start to run it through some stuff. Other things that I pay attention to. The vocal has a lot of body in it and it's really low. You know what I mean? So he's got this like low voice. We have to be careful with that. The guitars need to jump out of the speakers. They're just not doing that for me. They're like, eh. Like especially here, like when I play the guitar solo. And in that portion, I feel like the drums are really loud, right? Like they're louder than the guitars. And typically when you get a mix that doesn't have any limiting, it seems like the producer took off, you know, whatever limiting they might have had on the master bus because they left me a lot of headroom, which is great. I need that. But once you start to eat up that headroom and eat up that those extra dBs and bring the LUFs up, we're going to get into a point where the drums get actually quieter because it's going to compress down on those transients a little bit more. So we got to be careful of that though, because we don't want to kill the transients, and that's really important. So that's kind of where we're going to get into this. It's muddy a bit. Yeah, I agree. There's definitely some mud in there. And as we compress, as we bring stuff onto the master bus, you're going to notice that certain things like pop out even more, right? Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start out. First thing I'm going to do is I am going to go to the loudest portion here because it has everything. It has the vocals, the guitars, the drums, the basses, everything's cranking right here. Okay, and for anybody that wants, like, because I'm not going to go super deep into mastering theory and all that right now, okay? I'm going to just show you my thought process. I'm going to go through this master because this is for a client. But if anyone wants more further detail, go deeper into mastering, I've pinned a link here in the chat that you could check out the Mastering Masterclass. You're going to get a lot out of that. Anybody that's been through that knows that that's a highly valuable resource. And I break down LUFs and RMS and peak and all that shit and metering and all that stuff in that masterclass. So if you want more in-depth training on that, pick that up. All right. And it's very affordable. Everything I give you guys is very affordable. Okay. So let's go. The first thing I'm going to do, usually I have like a mastering chain I can call on, but I'm going to do this from scratch just for you guys. This STL control hub, I've been digging this a little bit lately, and it's a brand new plugin that I got from STL, and they were like, hey, check this out. And now it's going to crash, right? Like as I'm trying to shout it out. Hey, check out this control hub. It doesn't work. It crashes your computer. Yeah, okay, so maybe not a good example. Let's see if it can recover. Yeah, I don't think that's going to recover. I think we're going to get a crash here. No bueno. All right. let's rejam Pro Tools. So I think that that plugin is like so new that it probably needs an update. That's funny, huh, Brian? I'm like, yeah, check out this new one from STL. Like, all right. Definitely needs an update. I probably just haven't even installed the update, to be honest with you. But I was going to show you one of the features in it because I think it's really, really musical. It's really good. And maybe I'll still show you once we relaunch here. Ah, the fun part about being an engineer. Dealing with software. Software's fun. Computer problems. Yeah. So fun. All right, let's reopen our mastering session here. And this is why you're always saving, right? Let's just get rid of that guy and let's try and relaunch him. So if you hit tab in Pro Tools, you can just search your stuff. So here's the control hub that I was going to show you. Let's see if it'll launch up. There we go. That's what it should be doing. All right, so let's make sure you guys can hear this. Love that intro, by the way. That's some dope shit. Like, I love chugs. Chugs are always cool. All right, so let's go in here and let's just kind of loop this area. What I was going to show you on this STL Tones, which I really love, is this color. So there's a pre-EQ, a color, a compression, master EQ, effects, and a limiter. I'm not a huge fan of the limiter. I haven't really messed around with the EQ too much, but this color is super dope. The drive on here, you could drive either tape or tube. Really fun. So I'll show you that. I'm going to take the compression off. I'm going to take the master EQ off. You could use the master EQ, but I have better, like, things that I have go-to for mastering EQs, right? So right now I'm just going to push a little bit so I can get a little bit more gain out of everything. Okay, so just getting some nice gain out of that, and I really like the color of that. It's really great. It's full, it's thick, it kind of pushes forward, and I love that. So that's what I'm going to start with, is just that little bit of color, and what we're doing is 1.3 dB of drive. We're doing 53% tape and 74% tube. When I'm driving the tape and the tube, I'm really paying attention to what it's doing to the mids and the top end, and of course, like the bottom end as well. Typically when you start pushing the tape, you're going to get more bottom end. You're going to get more like woofiness, which is hard because then you really want to kind of shape that afterwards. So I typically just start with that. Like, I want to get a little more gain out of everything, right? And then I could come in and I can shape my gain a little bit using an EQ. One of my favorite EQs for mastering is going to be the BX Digital V3. It's just like, I don't know if anything can beat it so far. Like, I really, really love this thing. Pro Q3 is great for mastering as well, but it's just I don't know. There's just something about like my workflow with the BX Digital. So this one here, the V3, I think it's because I like EQing in mid-side. So I typically start with the mid-side EQ setting. So if you go in here, you're just going to have the mid-side mastering start. And then I just reset everything because I don't want any of this stuff. So if you hold down Command and you click on this, you can reset everything. So I'm just going to reset all these little parameters that are going on here. And then I like to start with, let's just kind of, clean up the bottom. For a track like this, because it is like rock, you can go pretty high. Like, you don't need 30 hertz. You don't need 25 hertz. You know what I mean? Like, you could start up here at like 60 and then sweep down to where you're like, okay, that's good. Right? So that's kind of where I start. That's the middle section. On the sides, I want to do the same thing. Usually I'll use like a little bit of a more subtle slope. So like, I'll go up here and I'll figure out what sounds good and what I need in the sides and what I don't. And it's good to clean up the sides with the low end, right? You can also use the mono maker, which will take everything below 54 hertz or 600 hertz and it'll put it mono, which is really cool and it's very useful, but I find that sometimes it can just like collapse your mix, right? So just be really careful with this. But I'll set it at like something really, 50 hertz or something, right? So there's sub information in this track and we'll hear it, but I love this tool because you can really kind of like hone in on that. All right, I'm going to turn this filter off for now, which is the mid filter for the low pass, and same with the high pass or the low pass on the sides. Okay, so everything's kind of reset, and then I like to give a little bit of stereo width with this plugin because I just think it's like very musical. One of the best stereo widening plugins out there for mastering is this plugin and any of the Brainworks stuff. That stereo width knob is really nice, but you could totally overdo it. I don't typically go over 120%, but yeah, because you don't want things to be louder in the sides than they are in the middle. That's really a no-no in mastering as well. So sometimes you want your master to be really focused. Sometimes you want to be really wide and deep and all that shit. It just depends on the song. This one I feel like needs to be a little bit more focused. So let's check this out. So right away, we're just kind of cleaning things up. We're tightening things up. You notice some of that woofiness kind of goes away because of this these filters that we're using. And this is great for filtering. It's just awesome for filtering. So now I'm going to kind of search around for things I don't like in the middle. So when you're thinking about the middle, you got to really think like, what's in the middle? It's typically going to be the kick drum, the snare drum, the vocals. But as you solo these bands, you'll hear exactly what's in the middle. So check it out. So it's interesting because sometimes I don't want to just cut something, right? But because I know that I'm going to be limiting later, I'm going to be bringing levels kind of back up. So this like 132 area is really chunky for me, but I find that the best way to handle that is a dynamic EQ or a multi-band EQ, because I don't want to always have that sweeped out. I just want to tone that down when there's too much of it. So in this case, I'm not going to be cutting that with this EQ very much. I'm just going to give it like a little bit, like a half dB or something, right? And we're talking in tenths of dB when we're mastering a lot of the times, right? So I've taken down a little bit of that 641 in the middle and the 132 in the middle, which is just getting kind of woofy with the kick drum and the bass, right? And I could sweep up a little bit further because I think it's probably a little higher than 132, but it's pretty close to that. Okay, so that's starting to really sound a lot more defined, if you will. Like, it's starting to sound like, okay, now we're starting to clear up some stuff. We're clearing up some room. We've made it a little wider, but there are some frequencies in there that are like really bright and shrill to me. And I think I'm going to look around like that 4K to 5K area. Typically, those are frequencies I don't like. Also, 2K. Around 2K is like, 1.8, 1.7 to about like 2.5. That's really annoying frequency, especially as we start to make this really loud. Okay, so with rock guitars, you got to be careful though, because you don't want to take out too much of that cut and that shit that like makes it jump out of the speakers, right? Because in that 3K to 6K area, that's where those guitars really start to shine and cut through. So we're gonna start searching around the middle for those like those whiny frequencies that I'm like, oh God, like a baby crying, right? So that's starting to really sound cool. So now I'm going to jump to a little different area where we got more of the guitars. Maybe like, so we can just kind of shape the guitars in the side a little bit.
My wife thinks I'm acting like a little.
Cool. It's already sounding softer, a lot like just sweeter feeling to me. Now I do want a little bit more like harmonic information out of this. And one of my go-tos, I'd say for any rock record, like especially if you want things to be like harmonics to pop out, is going to be like the Manley variable mu, or anything like it. Like a variable mu compressor just means it's going through some tubes, right? So let's go to the variable mu, the Manley, and let's just push this just a little bit so we can get a little punch out of it. And also just kind of like wrap those guitars with some saturation, some love. What you want to do with that is you really want to start to drive the input. The input is going to give you the color because you're pushing into tubes. So let's just start with, you could start with anything. Let's go like something really gentle, like a gentle squeeze, or, you know, compress. I mean, I should just be saving all of my presets, but I just don't do that. I like to do stuff from the top. So master mix bus is good, but I'm just looking for something that's going to be subtle. So smooth as silk bus comp. Let's try that. So this is going to be your threshold. You're going to bring this down to compress or limit harder, right? We're going to take that to compression, or to limiting, not compression. And then I have a high pass side chain. We're going to leave that flat. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep this at left, right. Cool. And then 100% wet is good for now. The attack, you want it to be pretty slow, and you want the release to be pretty fast. But this has a fast, it's kind of like a fast through slow sort of thing, right? So I'm just going to kind of put that in the middle for now. And then we're just going to kind of give this just like a little tiny touch, but we're going to get the color out of the input drive, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. We're not compressing hard. We're driving the compressor input circuitry. So check it out. I mean, that's magic, right? Like I'm not putting more gain into it. This is gain matched. Like I A/B it. What I hear is I hear harmonics going on in the highs and the mids, right? So the high mids really like that like 1K to like 5K area just like starts to jump out of the speakers a little bit more, which is really cool. What's up, Josh? How you doing, bro? Good to see you. So it's really like, what it is right now is it's like coloring and like shaping with different tools. And when you're mastering, you're not really like hitting one thing really hard. A lot of people, I think, overdo it with one plugin, right? So we're just barely doing something here with this color knob, a little bit of drive. We're doing some shaping with the EQ and mid side, right? We have the variable mu, which is just like, it's not even really compressing. It's just driving the input just a little bit to bring out some harmonics. And what I want you to do is like really just listen as I A/B this. Listen to what's happening with the vocal and the guitars and the drum, like the drum high stuff, the cymbals and all that. Just listen to that stuff. Like listen to that, listen for that. It's like we're EQing with the tubes, right? So we do this all the time in mixing as well, and mastering and production even, right? Like we like to shape sounds with harmonics, with tubes, with tape, with transformers, with everything, right? So it's really, really important that you utilize these tools to get EQ presence, to get mid-range punch, or whatever you're looking for. Like, you just have to understand the tools, and you have to understand what they're built around. Like, this is a hardware unit that this is built around. I've used it many times. There's also a mastering version of this compressor that's black. It's all black, and it sounds even better. It's not better, I guess it's more subtle, if you will. All right, so we're good there. Now we want to start to get a little bit of a little more separation is what I want. And separation happens when you start to clean up a little bit of the low mids typically, and the highs, really, right? It's about EQing. It's about like frequencies peaking and kind of taking those peaky frequencies down and bringing up more of the frequencies that are missing. And a cheat code for that is obviously going to be Gullfoss, right? One of my favorite plugins of all time. I don't know if there's a better plugin out there. I really don't. And if I was getting into mastering and I really wanted to be a mastering engineer, this is the plugin that I would like study. I'd put this against oscilloscopes and like really understand what it's doing. But here you have a filter where it says, hey, don't touch anything 91 hertz and below. Don't shape any of that. You can go really focus on the mid-range only, or you can focus on the full spectrum of 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, right? I like to start with this up here. I already know, like I have a sense of the song, that the kick drum is really like the low of the kick drum is around that 40 to 45 hertz. That's where your sub is. And then the real like kick drum punch is around that 100 to 150 area. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and like just not touch the sub stuff with this, right? I don't need more sub in this track yet, or that I'm feeling, right? And then I really don't want the really high brilliant stuff, because I don't feel like this track needs like a bunch of sparkly top end. You want to be able to turn this up and be like, yeah, this is big, it's rocking. You don't want to like turn it up and be like, oh God, oh, the cymbals, it's killing my ears. We got to be really careful with cymbals. So as I bring this tame up, it's going to sort of like take down anything that's really peaky in the track. And then the recover is going to bring up anything that's missing in the track. So you really want to use these two together. You want to kind of tame and recover, so you can kind of switch up the you know, it's going to give you separation basically, because you're going to take down things that are peaky, you're going to take up things that are missing in the mix, and that's just going to give you more width, more depth. You're going to hear more clarity happen. With the boost, this is kind of a smiley face thing, but I realize more and more that I use the boost that it actually more so boosts the low end in the body of the mix. But it's really nice because it kind of pushes the mids back a little bit and gives you that more, sounds like a record kind of vibe, right? So I'm going to start here. I think this is a really good starting point. I typically like this filter around like 16K or so. I don't know why. It just like kind of replicates Tape Machine to me. So I'm going to keep it like down here. All right, so let's mess with this. Let's start to open it up a little bit. So you notice right away when I start bringing that boost up, all of a sudden it starts to get heavier and warmer. And that's cool. I like the warmth of it. It's really beautiful. But this track really still needs mid-range. It's rock and roll. And if you've mixed and mastered enough rock and roll, you understand like the mid-range and the highs and stuff. It's okay to have that. Like it's okay to be kind of spanking on those areas. That's what makes rock and roll, right? We don't want it to be like a fucking Da Baby record. Like we're not looking for like this huge bottom warming, you know, like we want the guitars to be like driving and, you know, it's why they call me the greatest. Like it's got to be fucking rock and roll still, right? So we got to be really careful with making things really warm and gooey when the track's not warm and gooey. So you got to listen to the track. You got to understand what is trying to get across on this track. And when you got a guitar solo that's shredding like this, they're trying to get across some like, you know, some fuck you kind of energy. It's rock and roll. That's why they call me the greatest entertainer in the world or whatever, right? Like it's a machismo kind of thing. So it's okay to be a little aggressive. That's all I'm saying. So let's A/B all this Goldfoss. Right, a lot more clarity. We're widening things out. You're really hearing the reverbs now, which is really awesome. It opens the track up. It doesn't sound like congested. It doesn't sound like it's got a blanket on it anymore, right? So we really want to open up this world that this singer's in. And it's got to sound good there, and it's got to sound good on the chorus, and it's got to sound good here, right? Like, it's got to sound good everywhere. We can't be like, oh, that area sounds like shit, but, you know, at least the last chorus sounds good. So let's check the very beginning as well, because this is a good place to check. Okay, so that sounded really great. And, you know, I typically can master a lot quicker when I'm not talking through the whole thing. But but so far, this is sounding great to me. Now that I have all this kind of like the shape of it really nice, I'm going to use all this stuff. I'm going to go back to this stuff. I'm trying to build a console, basically, right? But I know towards the end of everything, I probably want like the final stage of limiting, the final stage of mastering, the final stage of like my limiter that I'm going to be kind of like mastering into, if that makes sense. So at about this point, this is when I turn that on. There's two different limiters that I'm going to try on this. I don't think I have this on this computer, but this invisible limiter is amazing. I love it. I think this is truly like a game changer limiter, especially for mastering, but I don't think I have it installed on this computer yet. So there's another one by DMG Audio that is insanely good, and it's Limitless. And this is probably, I mean, in my top 5 plugins of all time as well. And the reason being is because it has this like dynamic EQ, peak limiter, and brick wall limiter all together in one plugin. So it's really, really dope. Like I can't even like begin to express how awesome this limiter and this plugin is. It's so musical too. So for the release, I typically, like for a song like this, because the BPM, it's kind of like a mid-tempo. It's not fast, it's not slow. I go around probably 150 to 300 milliseconds on release. I'm going to set my threshold and my ceiling. Typically my ceiling, I'm just going to go all the way to the top. 0.1 dB, negative 0.1. I don't want to go over. You could of course set it to 0 and still like you won't go over, right? But I'm going to go like this limiter is really cool because like once you move it, see how it's at 0 now? If I click and I move it, it goes negative 0. So now it's saying, hey, that's like we're hitting 0. But I like to just have a little safety. So 0.1 dB, a tenth of a dB safety. And then we're just going to bring the threshold down. The smooth style is my favorite for this. But you can also go in here and go more punchy, more tight, all that kind of stuff. Aggressive if you wanted to, because this is rock and roll. I'm going to stick to smooth just because I know it. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shape the bottom, because once you start to compress, the bottom's going to come up like crazy and you're going to lose a lot of voltage. So let's push this a little bit. Cool. So we're starting to open it up a little bit. We're getting a little more level out of it. Now I really, really feel like it needs just a little bit more like grit to it. You know, like it just doesn't have that like rock and roll like spit. you know, I need that spit. Like, so after the Gullfoss, what I want to do is I want to do just a little bit of cleanup. I'm just going to play housekeeping here. I'm going to give this a really hard, steep filter. I'm going to make sure that I'm on either natural phase or linear phase. I really like the natural phase for mastering. I think it's really good. And we're just going to clean up down here, and we might clean up a little bit around here so we can just get more volume. We want to save voltage. That's the biggest thing we're trying to do here. So let's check this out.
Did my time, 9 to 5, 40 years on the.
Okay, so that's starting to sound really good. And this is very subtle. If I bypass this in and out, you're going to hear just a little bit more clarity happen and a little bit more smoothness. Right? Just very subtle. We're trying to get an extra half a dB out of the record. That's all I'm trying to do when I put something like this on. And you can tell they did a lot of management. The producer already, the mix already did a ton of management down here, which is great. But sometimes you want to dynamically like kind of take down some of this chunky stuff because you don't want it always taken down. For example, like in this part, the intro, you want that chunk. Right? But then when you get into the vocals and stuff and the big chorus with everything going, the chunk kind of kills the clarity. So that's why we start to use dynamic and multi-band stuff, right? So in here, you can easily go in here and say, hey, I'm going to make this dynamic and I'm going to say just duck it when there's too much of it. So let's search around for those frequencies and find that spot.
Did my time, 9 to 5, 40 years on the grind. Now it's time to live my life like a madman with a vibe. Ditch the office and the tie, join the gram and let it fly. Found the talent in my.
Right? Like that's magic to me, man. Like just very, very subtle, simple things. Okay, so now I do want to get that grit going. So there's a couple things I'm going to try here. This new Waves plugin I just absolutely love, and it kills me how good it is. But I'm going to try it out just to give it a little bit more body, more punch, more fatness, right? And that's the BB Tubes. Let me find it. I think it's under Magma or something. Yeah. So this guy, this is great for just like, you know, you got a transformer on here. You can push it a little bit. We can just add a little bit more drive, a little more thickness, a little more life. just that transformer, man, like it's just so good. Like this is not doing as much as you think it's doing. It's adding a lot of gain, but it's like perceived gain because of the actual tube saturation, right? So you got to be careful with this too, because you could put too much high end in. So this is like the tone knob. This is the high end and low end, right? So you can do it pre the tube drive or post the tube drive. So what I can do here is I could turn this down and drive into it a little bit darker. And then post, I can just kind of bring that brightness back up if I need it. So hopefully, you know, you guys are getting and understanding how important harmonic saturation and distortion is. It's like really, really important. I'm like, shit, come on, guys. Like, yo, that's a crazy, like, if you guys didn't watch my plugin of the week on this one, you should definitely go check it out. But this plugin is just, like, so musical, man. Like, one of the best plugins I think Waves has ever made. And I'm not saying that, like, to sell you guys on this. Like, just, you can hear it. Like, what do you want? What else do you want, right? So, lastly, and maybe I'm going to do this, right? I don't know yet, but I think I can get a little more volume out of this guy. So I'm going to use the God particle or isotope. I'm not really sure yet which one I want, but the God particle is really good at giving me a little bit of this like magic right here, which is just harmonics from a console. It's like SSL harmonics, like driving something through a console, right? So always pay attention to your gain structure as you're mastering. It's the important thing here is like we want to open this up a little bit. So I might want to turn this input down a little bit. Like maybe I'll go doot like that, and I might turn the EQ off for now, and I might leave this at 100, and the limiter, like the limiter is already at 5 dB, so it's always going to sound good right when you play it, which is what they made it for. So turn the limiter all the way down, and then we'll turn it up. What I'm listening for is this guy here. It's getting there. You got to be careful with this God particle because it has a curve to it, right? So it is going to shape things the Jason Joshua way, right? Like it has a little bit of a smiley face curve to it. And you don't always want that in rock and roll. Sometimes you want that mid-range just fucking, you know, you want that high mid like really hitting you. So because of the guitars, electric guitars, right? So we have to find areas where like go through the track and find out, is it like killing and like doing too much on the low end on certain parts? And that's why we go back and we tweak if we're going to mix into something like that. You can also use ozone, isotope. You could do some soft clipping at the end, which could be really musical. But I also want to check like where I'm at right now with my RMS, my peak, my LUFs, all that stuff. But I think I would want to kind of tame this down if I'm using the God particle. And I would bring this up as well. So I'm not like treating so much of this down here. And I might even use the tame more and the recover down, right? So like to tweak into the God particle a little bit more, this is what I would do. And even on the magma, I would give a little more bass relief. And limitless, I think that's pretty good for now. I might want to just limit a little less there. And variable mu looks, I think that's fine. This guy here is adding quite a bit of beef. So beef, it's what's for dinner, you know what I'm saying? So let's do that, tweak that a little bit. And I'm just doing this off experience, guys. Like you may not be able to just go in here and like do what I'm doing, but I'm just like trying to figure out the best way to feed the next stage, right? So this guy really needs to be tamed. This 136 down, and I'd even bring that up. All right, so let's check this out.
I wrote a song, now I rock the house just like King Kong. That's why they call me the greatest. Everything I do turns to gold. That's why they call me the greatest. I'm on top of the world. My wife thinks I'm acting like a little kid. Now she's the best actor in my crazy skits. I have so much content to be seen, better than these clowns taking over your screen.
So I'm not sure we could use the magma and the God particle together. It's just not working. It's too much distortion. It's too much in that low mid area is just getting too much color. So I'm going to take this guy out for now, and we're going to just hear it without the magma. So yeah, that's getting there, you guys. Like it's really starting to shape up. Yo, thank you, Drew. Appreciate it, bro. Thanks for the super chat. Always supporting, man. That's the fam right there. But yeah, you guys, if you want to support the channel, super chat, subscribe, share the show, all that good stuff. Like, I'm trying to give you guys some free game here. I hope it really does help. But I appreciate it, Drew. Appreciate the respect, my man. All right, so at this point, like, I have to take an ear break because I've been mastering this for a little bit. And they left me so much headroom that, like, I have to really, like, do this due diligence. But the things I'm noticing right now to get this across the finish line, I really need to tweak and make sure that I'm not pushing those distortion, that distortion in that low mid kind of area. Sometimes a good way to check that, and the very, very simple way to check it, is to literally like go through with an EQ or a multiband. Like you could use, here, I'll show you a cool trick. You go to like multiband, Pro MB, I think would be a good one to do this with. And you basically just like make a couple bands, right? Like go, yo, I got my bands, bitch. All right, so we make some bands here. And we're not going to do any compression or anything on these. I'm just going to show you how you could sort of find stuff, right? So on this, we'll just take the threshold all the way up. All of these, you should just take all the thresholds up, right? So we're not doing any compression on any of it. I don't want to be compressing. I'm just going to be using these to sort of solo out the bands, right? So what we could do is we could play through this, and I could hit solo on these bands and figure out, like, from 100 to, you know, 400, what's going on. Is there distortion? Is there buildup? Like, that's what I really want to listen for, okay?
Now everything I make is a masterpiece. Song, now I rock the house just like King Kong. That's why they call me the greatest. I do turns to gold. Now everything I make is a masterpiece. Stepped up my game, I wrote a song, now I rock the house just like.
So right away, you could start to hear where things are building up, right? Like this band, this mid band is really starting to get too out of control, right? So we have to be careful with that because this buildup could be happening because of distortion. It could be happening because you're driving the variable mu input a little bit too hard. It could be happening because this drive on the tape or tube is too much and it's driving the treble too much, right? So you gotta like really be careful with this stuff. Maybe that's not the right move. Maybe we want to take this thing out completely and just use like a compressor and smooth it out a little bit. You know, you don't always want to like do something and then go later, like fix that thing you did back here, you know, like if I wanted to fix it, I need to go back to the source of where it's at. Okay. But as you're mastering, the hard part is, and this is why it's so difficult and why you need ears and rooms and you know, $11,000 worth of monitoring equipment and shit, is that you have to know exactly where the culprits are and what the track's doing and how to get an extra, you know, half a dB, 4/10 of a dB out of the track that's going to make it a little louder and a little bit more jump out of the speakers and wrap around someone's head or whatever. And a lot of people can't do that because they don't have the ear training. They don't have the techniques. They don't understand all the tools. And, you know, no matter what you do, there's no magic plugin. You notice I turned the magma tubes off after I was like, this is the greatest plugin ever, because then I'm using the God particle. And do I like the God particle? I don't know. I'm just like going back and forth and using the tools I know. And I'm going, what's good about this? What's not good about it? Right. And then I'm tweaking. I'm always tweaking. So right here, what I can do is I could start to just kind of dip this and shape this a little bit more. Or I could use a tool like, you know, let's go in here and use like a soothe. Soothe is great for that. Or anything like that that's going to sort of tuck those areas, right? So we'll go into OEK, or even Leapwing Audio has Dyne 1.3, which is incredible. It's like one of the best plugins ever for me for mastering. I usually use that on pop, synth pop, stuff like that. But let's go in and let's grab OEK Soothe 2, another like top 10 plugin for sure. Soothe 2. And what we'll do here is we'll just start to tame that area that I just showed you on the Pro MB, right? So what we want to do is find something that's like, you know, let's go to the mastering stuff, and let's go to like D harsh, right? It's perfect. And now this is a little much. Like, I don't really want all that, but that's kind of the idea that I'm looking for, is like D scratch. That could be good. So this is like the scratchy stuff that we were listening to, and we can move this band down, right? Like we could go like this, and let's go more of like where we were when we were listening to Pro MB. Like, it was around this kind of area. I would even go down to 2K, right? And we'll just kind of check this out and give it a little bit of love. And I'll do this at 4 times ultra, because I can, motherfucker. The biggest trick that nobody teaches you about OEK Soothe 2, or any sort of dynamic EQ, auto dynamic EQ sort of thing, is it's all about the attack and release, just like any other compressor. Nobody teaches you that. I don't know why. They like, yeah, turn this on, it sounds amazing. It's like, bro, you need to solo it. You need to listen to the delta, which is the difference, what it's taking out. And you need to adjust it to the track, because every track's different BPM, tempo. Soothe 2 doesn't know that. It doesn't know that you're at 130 BPM. It doesn't know that this track's at 170. It doesn't know that this one's at 80 BPM. You have to adjust the attack and release. If you don't, you're fucking yourself, and you're not, like, you're throwing money away on these plugins because you don't even understand how to use them. Like, just learn the shit, read the manuals, like really understand what these things are doing. But yeah, man, like if you don't set that, the attack and release, and you don't set this mix, and you don't really understand what's going on with this plugin, you are not getting anything out of it. You're probably destroying your shit and getting a lot of phasey shit going on. But yeah, that's how you do it. 100% how you do it. And then flip between the depth. Like what I do is I overdo the depth so I can really hear the attack and release and what it's doing with that information. And then check between hard and soft. When you do hard, you definitely want to go a little less with the depth, right? Mess around with the sharpness. Like mess around with things and understand why you're messing around with them. That's what mastering is. That's when you get to being a mastering engineer or a great producer. Or a great anything at music, right? Like you have to understand the tools. And most of y'all just like don't. You just fucking just buy shit. It's insane. Oh, it sounds good. Does it sound good? or are you ruining your shit? You know, so we got to be really careful with these tools, and you got to like understand how powerful they are. This is a very, very powerful tool. So let's A/B it in and out. Make sure that we did something good here.
And the tie, join the gram and let it fly. Found the talent in my veins, now living the dream and playing the game. That's why they call me the greatest. Everything I do turns to gold. That's why they call me the greatest. I'm on top of the world. Bumping into guys bigger than cars, now I have new friends and bumping.
So there's a little bit of roughness in that snare, right? Like the right? So we got to be careful with that because that's starting to get a little distorted. And you know, you just got to approach it. You got to really, really approach it. You got to understand where that is and where that distortion's coming from, and just mess with it. Make sure it's not hitting all the time, right?
Bumping into guys. Bumping into guys. Bumping. Bumping into guys. Bumping into guys. Bumping into. Bumping into guys. Big. Have new friends. Friends and bumping into guys bigger than cars. Now I have new friends and bodyguards. Always laughing. With my boys, I don't need no fancy toys. Used to stress over all the grief now. Bumping into guys bigger than cars. Now I have new friends and bodyguards. Bumping into Bumping into guys bigger than cars, now I have new friends and bodyguards. Always laughing with my boys, I don't need no fancy toys. Bumping into guys bigger than cars, now I have new friends and bumping into guys. Bumping. Bumping into guys. Bumping into guys bigger than cars, now I have new friends and bodyguards. Always laughing with my boys, I don't need no fancy toys. Used to stress over all the grief, now everything I make is a masterpiece. Stepped up my game and wrote a song, now bumping into guys bigger than cars, now I have new friends and bodyguards. Always laughing with my boys, I don't need no fancy toys. That's why they call me. That's why they call me. That's why they call me the greatest. I'm on top of the. I'm on top of the. I'm on top of the world. That's why they call me. That's why guys bigger than cars, now I have new friends and bodyguards. Always laughing with my boys, I don't need no fancy toys. Used to stress over all the grief, now everything I make is a masterpiece. Stepped up my game and wrote a song, now I rock the house just like King Kong. That's why they call me the greatest. But everything I do turns to gold. That's why they call me the greatest. I'm on top of the world. My wife thinks I'm acting like a little kid. Now she's the best actor in my crazy skits. I have so much content to be seen. Did my time, 9 to 5, 40 years on the grind. Now it's time to live my life like a madman with a vibe. Ditch the office and the tie, join the gram and let it fly. Found the talent in my veins, now living the dream and playing the game. That's why they call me the greatest. But everything I do turns to gold. That's why they call me the greatest. I'm on top of the world. Bumping into guys bigger than cars, now I have new friends and bodyguards. Always laughing with my boys, I don't need no fancy toys. Used to stress over all the grief, now everything I make is a masterpiece. Stepped up my game and wrote a song, now I rock the house just like King Kong. That's why they call me the greatest. But everything I do turns to gold. That's why they call me the greatest. I'm on top of the world. My wife thinks I'm acting like a little kid. Now she's the best actor in my crazy skits. I have so much content to. That's why they call me. That's why they call me the greatest. I'm on top of the great. I'm on top of the. I'm on top of the world.
That's the time I got for tonight. Do you guys have any questions whatsoever as I'm doing this? Hopefully you understand, like, I'm just kind of like, you know, going back and forth and tweaking and making sure that, you know, gain structure, all that stuff is in order. I guess the final thing I can do for you guys is I can make this bounce and then I can bring it back in and kind of compare A/B. So let's do that. So greatest entertainer, and obviously, like, I wouldn't bounce this and ship it right now. I need to take an ear break for at least, like, you know, 15 to 30 minutes, come back, finish off the little tweaks, the final stuff. But yeah, let's just call this master B1. I usually include 2 rounds of revisions with my mastering so that, you know, the client can go, oh, we love that, but can we fix this or tweak that? Can we make it a little wider? Can we do this? And then that way I can be like, yeah, of course. All right, so let's do this. Let's do offline bounce. Actually, we probably want to make sure that this is going to the right folder, right? Desktop, mastering. All right, so let's bounce. Sometimes I print back into Pro Tools, but Pro Tools has gotten so good with all the updates that I just do offline bounce and I check it, you know. Usually is great. Track sounds awesome now. That's what's up. That's the plan, right? Like, why pay me to make a song sound worse? Yo, I hope it was a really, really useful, man. Thanks for stopping in, man, and thanks for the super chat. Yeah, you're welcome, Brian. This is right up your alley, right? Like super rock and roll with the chugging guitars and everything. You're welcome, man. You're welcome. So yeah, if you guys don't have any questions, we'll bounce this back in. We'll do a little quick A/B comparison, and then I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna get a little ear break in and finish this off. I got to get it to the client. But you know, the biggest thing about mastering, you guys, is that it's just like mixing. It's very modular. So when you start doing one thing, it messes with something else, right? If I put the God particle on, or if I put a limiter on, or if I use anything, like whenever I use something, it's going to bring out other things that I don't want. That doesn't mean you add another plugin to get rid of that thing that you don't want. It means that you really got to like use the tools and balance them, right? And this is actually a pretty big chain, but it's not like nothing's really doing a ton of work, you know? Like, you got the STL control hub, the BX Digital, the variable mu, Goldfoss, Pro Q3, Pro MB, Limitless, Soothe 2, and the God particle. And I'd say the heaviest lifting, as far as like volume and harmonics and stuff, is going to be from the limiting always, right? Like the God particle, the Limitless, and then Goldfoss. And everything else is just kind of like, you know, it's just small stuff. And it's shaping. Like, I like to think of things as shaping, right? So here's what we're going to do now is we'll bypass all of these, right? We'll just turn them all off. And I know there's a key command to just bypass the sections and the inserts A through E and F through J. I just don't want to try and remember that right now. And we'll turn on the last thing that I would kind of check everything in. As I'd go to my plugin alliance and do my SPL Hawkeye. I love this meter. I think it's really great, and it gives me a lot of information. And then if I go into options and I go to solo mode, I can do XOR, make sure that I have XOR on, and I can just basically solo back and forth between these. And obviously you're going to get a crazy, like, you know, level jump out of my master. That's obvious. But we could even, you know, just check the LUF difference. So we have LUFs, we have DBTP. You got the, it'll show you RMS and peak left and right here. It'll show you mid and side here. RMS plus 3 dB here. You got full scale, or you could do different weighting. You could do K12, K14, K20. All that good stuff. And then I also have like a histogram. I could see what's out of phase, all that kind of stuff. This will show me the full EQ spectrum. And we're just going to kind of bounce between the reference, the mix, and the final master. And just kind of check it out. You know what I'm saying?
Did my time, 9 to 5, 40 years on the grind. Now it's time to live my life like a madman with a vibe. Ditch the office and the tie, join the gram and let it fly. Found the talent in my veins, now living the dream and playing the game. That's why they call me the greatest. Everything I do turns to gold. That's why they call me the greatest. I'm on top of the world. Bumping into guys bigger than cars, now I have new friends and bodyguards. Always laughing with my boys, I don't need no fancy toys. Used to stress over all the grief, now everything I make is a masterpiece. Stepped up my game and wrote a song, now I rock the house just like King Kong. That's why they call me the greatest. Everything I do turns to gold. That's why they call me the greatest. I'm on top of the world. My wife thinks I'm acting like a little kid. Now she's the best actor in my crazy skits. I have so much con. They call me. That's why they call me the
So there you have it. What do you guys think? You know, let me know in the comments if we kicked the shit out of the mix, improved it, made it wider, more impactful. Definitely guitars are jumping out of the speakers now, which is really what I set out to do. We took the LUFs from -14 at the highest, where it was at the loudest portion of the last record, the mix. We took it up to what, -7, I think. Let me see. Yeah, -7 I think is a really good spot for this record, to be honest. So -7.5 on the LUFs. We gained a good 7 dB of gain and volume. And LUFs typically measure the perceived loudness, which is really great. It's more weighted towards like the mid-range and the vocal. So this will be very competitive on Spotify, because Spotify will turn it up or down depending on, you know, the other stuff around it. I think Spotify turns down anything 12 dB, -12 dB. It'll turn it down to -12, which means it'll turn this down a little bit, which is great because it has plenty of room to be turned down. Sounds good at a low level. That's really important. My next move would be to check it on these different headphones I have here, and check it on my ear pods, right? And in the car, like my wife has this like Kia Soul, right? And it has these terrible speakers in it, but I always know where it's supposed to be as far as like the high end on them, because the high end's really brittle on the Kia. So if I am like hitting into that super brittle area, I kind of need to go and tweak the high mids. But yeah, this is really important stuff, you guys. If you want to make records, you want to compete in today's music industry and release records that are competitive, you should definitely get people involved that have the rooms, have the ears, have the training. And if you can't afford, you know, $100, I think it's like $150 for this master with 2 rounds of revisions. And I do the instrumental, I do the acapella, and I do the full. So I do 3 versions with that. If you can't afford $150 for your song, then you should probably not be doing music as a business. You should probably just do it as a hobby. I think it's really, really important that everybody understands that. Like, investing in your business is something you have to do. It's not something you should do or something you should want to do or something you should think about. No business ever makes anything happen anywhere without some sort of capitalization. So you need to figure out how you can invest in your business if you want it to grow. But that being said, like, of course, like, feel free to be putting music out and doing everything yourself. Have fun with it, but don't expect to build a business out of it. And I think that's something that a lot of people right now are trying to, they're expecting to build a business out of, you know, doing everything themselves, not spending any money on anything, putting TikToks up, and then they're going to blow up or some shit. Like, a lot of people out there are very delusional. Let's put it that way. But yeah, stay with it, you guys. And hopefully you learned a lot about mastering with this. I think it's important to know about production, songwriting, mixing, mastering, recording. It's really important to learn all this stuff at a certain level. But once you get to a certain level, it's like any business. You want to learn enough about accounting, but you don't want to be the accountant in your business. Like, I'd be fucked if I was my accountant, right? Like, I send my books to get, you know, taken care of. I don't know how to do all that shit, right? So I'm not going to go learn accounting and then go learn marketing and then go learn every marketing platform. Like, just learn a little bit and then hire. Like, try to quit the things that are like at the, like, these really, really technical aspects of music, mixing, mastering, production, like the really, really technical stuff. You got to quit that as fast as possible. You got to focus on what you do best. Be the brand, be the artist, be the producer that makes the beats, and then give it to a vocal producer. Give it to people that can make it something excellent, and make sure that you have, you know, an actual egg in a basket, not, you know, an egg floating down the river that's not doing shit. All right. I love you guys. I really appreciate you guys. And I really want you to, you know, just return the value to me by subscribing, telling people about the channel, getting people involved with Radium. Like, that's all I care about, you guys. Like, I'm trying to build a business here that actually like makes great records and makes great products and people are excited about, right? So that's my plan. And we're going into 2023. So get your shit together. Quit messing around. All right, peace, guys.